Welcome back to another episode of the Risk Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a blockchain and crypto pioneer, Tarik. Tarik is currently a director of compliance and government relations for Crypto.com. He's based in Singapore, originally from the States. Tarik is a frequent speaker at industry conferences. He's a member of Access Singapore, Cryptocurrency and Blockchain Industry Association. He's a JD holder and founding member of SCAN, Compliance Association and Network of Singapore. Tarik, thank you so much for joining. As you can tell, I'm super excited to have you on board. As a crypto blockchain enthusiast myself, it's an absolute pleasure. So thank you for joining. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself, Jermaine?
I'm great. I'm good, Tarik. Very good, and I'm excited to have you on board. So, Tarik, can you give the audience a bit of information about what you've been doing in the last 2 years, both personal and career-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, currently I work for a company called Crypto.com. Really exciting firm in the crypto and blockchain space. We have a crypto app and wallet, as well as exchange and a card where you can use your crypto holding to pay in the real world through the Visa network, which is a really exciting and real world application of crypto products. So for the past few years, I've been working in the crypto space really just once I think, price started to heat up, hitting the 10,000 mark in late 2017. I was working for another crypto company called Paxos and working a lot on the exchange business for the compliance team. And that's what actually brought me from New York City to Singapore. And now I'm leading the APAC efforts for regulatory compliance at Crypto.com.
And Singapore are doing some magnificent things. Speaking to a lot of leaders, it's a great place to be, and I'm assuming you have thoroughly enjoyed your time because you have not gone back to the US.
I haven't. I was only supposed to be here for 2 years, and now I'm on an indefinite timeline. Yeah, Singapore's a great place to be, and I think of it as really the spot where it's a microcosm of everything that's happening in the crypto and blockchain space, where all of these big international companies want to have a presence and a foothold in the Singapore market. There's a new regulatory scheme that's been in place for the past year, and it's just the growth, and I think the community here is amazing. So it's something that professionally and personally that I'm loving being part of.
Good. Thank you very much for the intro, Tarik. We'll start with the basics. So Tarik, what is cryptocurrency and what is the technology behind cryptocurrency, which is of course blockchain?
Yeah, good question. I think just to understand the basics, and I think to understand blockchain first, you should understand that this is basically a system in which a record of transactions made in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency are maintained through a decentralized network. And you can basically think of this as a ledger system. So blockchain technology has deep roots from the cryptography technology, and that's the science of basically keeping information secure. So one thing you'll always hear about Bitcoin is it's very big in the security and kind of that cryptography space. And I think it's the term now has become so popular, and the technology has become such a buzzword because of the existence of Bitcoin using it. And people like to follow the price, and that's what kind of makes the headlines. And so Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, and essentially that's a digital asset, and that's designed to work as a medium of exchange, such as money or other forms of payment. And your individual transactions that you make as a Bitcoin holder will be recorded on the blockchain and stored forever. So, for example, Jermaine, if I give you my Bitcoin wallet address, you can look this up on a blockchain explorer, just right on your browser, and you'll see what my Bitcoins holding are, some of my transaction history, or if you send me Bitcoin, we'll get what's called a transaction hash. And that's essentially the proof that the transaction has been made. We can look that up for essentially the rest of the time.
Of course. Amazing. So can you give us more information on the true added value from cryptocurrency and blockchain?
Yeah, when I really think of the true value is having absolute control over your money because it's running in a decentralized network. And I think of it from everyone kind of has their personal experience with money in a way where the middleman or the banks or whoever's holding your money has made you upset or frustrated you or um, made it difficult to access your money, whether that's the bank's closed or something like that. But Bitcoin doesn't close. There's no one that's
It doesn't
running,
close, no.
running it centrally. So these markets are 24/7. So you can always pay with Bitcoin or no matter where you are in the world. So I think that's just something that's fascinating. And it can be sent at a low cost. And you see projects like Ripple, where they're working on a remittance network to integrate into financial institutions because of the value of having that low cost and fast transactions. And you hear a lot about Bitcoin's value being the new digital gold or store of value, where people are using this as a hedge against inflation. And you're seeing that in the real world in places such as Venezuela or Turkey, where there's been a lot of inflation. And I won't get into the macroeconomics of Federal Reserves printing money, but essentially this has been a big catalyst for crypto's growth, especially Bitcoin. And then you have cryptos such as Ethereum. The Ethereum network basically is a network for projects to build on.
Yes.
And you'll see stable coins being a very popular application that's used on the Ethereum network. So I think there's a lot of different cases and projects that are coming up that are exciting, but the way I think of it is the market kind of decides how it's going to be used in the application. So I sometimes think I'm a bit too close to it working, in the industry, but it's just interesting to see how people can be innovative in using it in different ways.
Do you have any advice for new investors that are obviously seeing this huge growth in cryptocurrency?
I think more than ever, people are asking me that question, family, friends, and I think during the pandemic, people have had a lot of time at home to digest a lot of the news that's happening in the crypto space and take the time to learn. And there's so many great resources out there where you can study up on just what is crypto and blockchain. So my advice is pretty simple. I would take the time to research and learn how it works. I think a good example would be there's tokens that are gaining popularity. Just one that comes to mind is Uniswap token, that it's an ERC20.
Yes.
So people will get onto exchange and they hear this is good from one of their friends. They buy it. They price is going up, but then they want to move it off in exchange to their own wallet, and then they learn, wait, this is an ERC20 token. I'm not sure what that is, but I need Ethereum now to move it. And so there's a lot that goes into it where I think it's worth to kind of do your research and learn. And what, I think probably number one piece of advice would be to work with a trusted exchange and something that's going to be easy for you to use and to make sense. And using a trusted exchange may lead to having potentially a less of a variety of tokens, but you're in a more secure environment. So I would keep it vanilla at first while you're kind of getting your feet on the ground, and of course only invest what you can afford to lose or have reduced. But I've got a lot of texts from people asking about Dogecoin. I'm not going to give you
of course.
Dogecoin. Yeah, but definitely join Telegram or Reddit communities. We have that with crypto.com, and people are really enthusiastic and active in these groups. And find a friend who's interested too, and they can be your first person that you may pay for lunch with crypto. Or I think I was hooked the first time that I ever sent a Bitcoin transaction to another wallet, and just tracking it on the blockchain until it gets there. And I thought it was just amazing. So I think that something to do is actually move it to someone so you can see that kind of transaction being processed on the blockchain and understand how it works.
What does the future of regulation look like in the crypto world?
So I believe that in the future and kind of in this post FATF world where they've been taking a strong stance on regulating crypto, these types of products, and it's going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but I think there's going to be limitations put in place that it's going to probably reduce some of the, I think, a bit of the craziness in the industry and make it, I think, a bit more consumer protection focused, which
Yeah,
can be a good thing. And I think that's what the FCA was going for there, was essentially consumer protection for some of these more advanced financial products.
absolutely.
And in the US, I mean, it's a very uh, heightened scrutiny when it comes to AML and KYC. So that's the origins of, this new regulatory initiatives that you mentioned. And where I am based here in Singapore in the APAC region, some of the regulators have made it known that they don't think these type of derivatives and these kinds of products are suitable for retail investors. So I think that relates to what we may see as well in the stock market with the Robinhood effect, where you're giving a lot of, I think, power to amateur investors in a way that that might not be in the best interest of consumer protection. But I think, you can see it from both sides. You want to have, as a user myself, as much freedom and flexibility, but from my wearing my compliance and regulatory hat, that it should be done in a sensible way, and also not stifle the technological innovation that we're seeing in the space now.
And moving from looking at the regulation, I mean, the fundamental piece around cryptocurrency is that it's a decentralized, deregulated digital asset, right? So to me, the ability to actually regulate this asset is going to be extremely difficult. Of course, they need to do it, they want to do it, but it is going to be very difficult. So how do we do it? What are the steps in terms of the exchanges, the digital banks, as well as governments, to make, to actually implement regulation into this market?
Yeah, so I think I understand that it can seem counterintuitive to some of the spirit and principles that Bitcoin and crypto is founded on, but at the same time, these things are a bit of a necessity for the maturity in the space. And with the regulatory structure that even in its early days has been in place now, you're seeing this institutional presence in the space that's you know, a catalyst for major growth. So I think you can see the benefits of it. But I believe crypto, like many other financial products, should be regulated in a sensible way. And this goes back to what I was saying, where consumer protection is balanced with innovation. So you want to allow both things to happen. And there's a lot of, I think, uh, amazing efforts on the regulator side where they're putting in place these frameworks where that's permissible to happen. So that's something that you can see if these new kind of like here in Singapore, we have the Payment Services Act, where it's clear how these products are going to be regulated, and that gives you, I think, confidence to be in a market like Singapore, but also give confidence in your products from a customer perspective. So I think it's a bit of give and take there.
Absolutely.
And I also believe in what the standards that FATF has been setting, where it's requiring a registration or a license that's going to have AML and KYC controls. So this ensures that the crypto ecosystem is remaining healthy, and exchanges and wallets aren't being used for illicit purposes. So I think what these registration and things allow is just a bit of scrutiny on the players to make sure they have good controls, to make sure people who say who they are and are using it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
But I think time should be given to institutions in the space to catch up as needed. So you don't want to regulate before the technology is there. So that goes back to my point of supporting innovation.
I've seen a lot of reg tech emerging businesses. So some prime examples of businesses in terms of that reg tech piece that are adding true value to businesses like exchanges in general, where they're actually adding, analytics and picking up on transactions, on AML, on transactional monitoring, cybersecurity. So the likes of Chainalysis, Elliptic. How much value do these businesses add to an exchange or digital bank?
It's a massive value add. These tools are just, I think, absolutely essential to what we do as a compliance program. and it's funny to think as the perception can be crypto is this very high risk industry, but some of the tools we have, I think that the banks would be fighting over to get their hands on. I mean, something like Chainalysis, where you can have a risk score of how transactions are basically how the source of funds are being risk scored and things, and they do a lot of amazing things. So I think we also it's been a big change from now where we're seeing this bull run compared to 2017, where eKYC is also a major thing, where you can really, if you have your documents together, be on an exchange and ready to trade in just an hour, maybe quicker. So it's a totally different environment. It's been amazing to see from my own eyes, just all of the the different tools and advancements that the industry has made from a compliance perspective.
To be fair, there are a few exchanges that I personally have joined, and although it is quick, they do ask for a lot of information. The checks seem to be thorough. So in that respect, although the time comparison to like a standard bank, 10 years ago to now with a crypto exchange, these businesses are still very thorough when they're checking on customers in general. It just seems to be expedited in terms of the time.
Definitely. I do understand that there's also some friction now still, where you might not get through, you give up because it's a lot of information, and I think that's something that's constantly being improved, and I'm sure you're seeing that from the reg tech side of how
Absolutely.
these fintech businesses can be helped on the customer acquisition side. So I think that's getting better, and that's a very common complaint I hear from my friends, where they say, look, I want to invest in crypto and I want to join it on an exchange, but they ask for so much, and it's kind of a pain. So it's just a friction point that exists, and I think that's something that's being improved, though.
Sure.
But it shows that I think the seriousness of how a lot of these exchanges are taking their AML and KYC regulatory obligations.
Absolutely, and a business asking for more information it should be seen as a good thing. They want to ensure that you are the person that you are, and they're ticking those boxes and doing the checks, like you've rightly said, on that individual to make sure that their customer is who they are, and it's all above board. So
yeah, and if you're new and looking to get on an exchange, I wouldn't be discouraged by that, because that's a sign of a good exchange when they want that information and make sure they're getting it, and that's ultimately a positive thing for you if you're doing business with them and leaving money on the exchange. So I think that's something to look for.
I just think you should be concerned if they just said, what's your name, what's your date of birth, and how much do you want to invest?
Right.
That would raise some flags. Right. So I guess for you, what do you see as the main challenges long term for the cryptocurrency market?
So I think it's exchange and wallet security, where right now in a private wallet, where let's say you lose your password, you potentially lose your funds. And we've heard a lot of these stories where millions of dollars are gone because someone forgot their password to their private wallet and things. So those are things that need to be improved and made more user friendly. And from an exchange perspective, we kind of just touched on that, where people can be discouraged by how difficult it is getting on. That's one part from a KYC perspective, but also the putting your money on and taking it off isn't always that easy. Your bank might block it, your credit card company might block it if they're not, doing business with crypto companies. So the fiat on ramp is what we call it, and fiat off ramps are still a challenge. But with more regulation, that makes these financial institutions more comfortable doing business with crypto companies. So that will improve, I think, as the regulatory environment has become more clear.
Well, I guess that goes down to number one, adoption again. So big banks like HSBC allowing you to make crypto buys and sells. And number two, it's actually reading the information before signing up to an exchange. So for example, drawing certain amount of money, I think on some exchanges, it's a maximum of $10,000. So if you made 70,000, the reality is you cannot just withdraw 70,000 just like that. So it goes down to being informed about the market and what you can physically do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, I think you should understand also what the limits are, but fees. So a lot of times people are surprised with some exchanges. They're charging very high fees for your crypto transactions. So I would also, understand what kind of fee is going to be taken in if you're buying or selling any of your crypto.
Absolutely. What about the challenges from a regulatory perspective, Tarik?
So I think the first thing that comes to mind is probably the widespread compliance with the travel rule, and that's something where um, there's been a rush in the RegTech space to come up with different solutions, and it's challenging because I'm in a market here in Singapore where that's absolutely required, and there's other markets, and this is known as the sunrise problem in the industry where that's not required. So how do you basically conduct your business with that kind of uncertainty? And I think that as the FATF rules are adopted in other jurisdictions, that kind of alleviates that problem. But I think this is something that, especially in the U.S., is a very hot topic, and it's a big challenge. So for me on the regulatory side, this has been an unexpected, I think, project to take on, because a lot of it is quite technical, and it's not purely compliance, it's not purely technology, but it's something that working on it personally has exposed me to a lot of different people, both in and outside the company. So that's it's been a good learning experience. If I'm spinning it in a positive way.
In terms of hiring, it's obviously a big topic, and lots of the audience, as well as applicants for new jobs. I know that there's always that interest in cryptocurrency. They may not be an expert, although who is an expert, but there's always an interest, right? There's always an interest in cryptocurrency, or even just the blockchain technology behind crypto. But what are the main traits that you look for when you're going through the hiring process?
It's a good question. I found this to be very challenging, and I've just recently built out a team here in APAC, so I'm kind of fresh off of a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
But it's significantly different today than it was 4 years ago when I was interviewing to join a crypto company. So I think,
speaking of
yeah,
yeah.
So now you can expect prior crypto experience. You may be looking for someone who's worked at another exchange, or and if it's not crypto experience, then maybe at least fintech experience, where a few years ago that really wasn't an expectation, but now that is a very key thing to see, where the environment is so different than a traditional financial institution. That gives you the comfort of, okay, they can I think be comfortable in this environment. But that's not to say if you're working at a large bank, that doesn't mean you can't go work for a crypto company. It's just I think you'd have to then show you have a knowledge and interest in the products that are available for the company you're interviewing for. From me as a compliance hiring manager, to really understand the regulatory environment, and then it's not something that really can't, I think, be taught or learned. Is just being passionate about the space and the user experience. And so if they're using the products themselves, and you can feel just on the other end of a Zoom call these days that they're excited about it.
Yeah,
then
you can tell. You can tell.
You can. Exactly. Yeah, and I find that really key, is something I measured during my interviews, and curiosity about the ecosystem and regulatory environment, about how your company's navigating it, because as joining as part of the regulatory team, that's something you really should be asking. And I think just from I think an onboarding perspective, you want them to kind of be able to take ownership of their I think learning experience in their first few weeks, where there's generally not this set training schedule or ramp up time. It's basically you have to be ready to go.
And get stuck in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would know this, probably getting feedback from clients. that's a really key thing in the space.
You have an abundance of people that are interested in joining and have that experience at crypto.com. But at Pacos, it was hard to find the right people because they didn't exist at the time.
Right. Yeah. It was, because people didn't have the ability to get that experience at the time. So now, with a few years past, that people would have had the chance to join a fintech and have these kinds of, I think, skills being built.
That's why I kept coming back to you and just saying, come on.
Yeah, bothered me all these years.
I bothered you a lot. Yeah. For you, over the last 4 or 5 years, what are the key differences and what are the most exciting things that you can do at an exchange or a digital bank that you may not have the opportunity to do, say, at a bank?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I think of is if you're at a bank, you're probably on a large team, and your whole floor is going to be basically people doing the same thing as you. But in a fintech or crypto company, I remember at Paxos, I sat right across from the trading desk, and compliance and trading have never sat so close, and we had really great conversations about all sorts of things about the market, or just how compliance works. And I think that was some of my favorite things is working with teams that I normally didn't have interactions with at the bank.
Absolutely.
And so one thing I think from regulatory team is working much closer with operations than I did at a bank. So that's something I really enjoyed, and product as well. And so a really emerging, I think, regulatory profile is, do you know regulatory requirements and also products as well? And it kind of this hybrid compliance role that is very hard to find, but is really demanding if you think of some of these digital banks and things that are looking for these kinds of roles. So I think it's just nice to see a lot of different teams and what they're working on, and how the company is. You kind of see the A to Z through Z of what people are focusing on. So that at a bank, though, you're a bit more. I think your sight into what else is going on is slightly more limited. But there's also, I think, positive things of banking environment where I think it's a bit more predictability at times. I think some of these companies, they can you don't know how viable, and there's certainly been consolidation in the space, and that in the banking world, I think you can take a bit more comfort in terms of longevity of what your responsibilities are, and what the company is doing. So I certainly give us a warning to everyone joining the industry that it's not for everyone,
No.
and you're probably going to sacrifice some sleep, and you probably can get paid more elsewhere. But this is like exactly where I want to be, and like this it's very rewarding.
Good. The last thing I want to ask, which we've gone off script a few times, but it's super important because Elon Musk, what a guy! Honestly, what a guy! Thoughts?
Well, so that was exciting. Where after the Tesla news came out that they were buying 1.5 billion in BTC, the price spikes to all-time high, and I see in my LinkedIn all of the exchanges I follow have their graphics ready for a new all-time high. It's just pure fun, and and I love seeing his tweets and activity. So I'm certainly a fan, but I think that this is one of many listed companies to come where part of their treasury is probably going to be denominated in whether Bitcoin or some kind of other digital asset.
Yeah.
And I think to tie that into something that's big and shows a need in the industry is, okay, now you have 1.5 billion in a crypto. Where are you going to keep it? How are you going to deal with that? And that shows the need for custody, and that's becoming very big with the OCC in the U.S. saying that banks can now custody digital assets. So now there's this need for infrastructure to custody Bitcoin, like Tesla may need. So I think it's great. I like seeing these listed companies.
Of course you do.
Yeah, of course. So it's exciting times.
I genuinely, the price driven has been, driving up because of more adoption, and other factors too. But, it does show people are taking notice. Some big organizations are taking notice, and I suspect there's going to be a lot more to come. So I'm excited to catch up with you maybe in a few months and do another one of these, because no doubt there will be so many more changes to talk about.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited. Tarik, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. We appreciate hearing it from Jones. Audience, I know there's going to be lots of questions for Tarik, so please drop a direct message. We'll cover it on the next podcast. I highly recommend adding Tarik, following him. He does a lot of podcasts. He's obviously got a great network in that APAC region. He goes to lots of conferences. He's been been a speaker at many of these events. So take a look at his content, get in touch, and we will be back for another episode soon. Tarik, thank you so much. And
thank you so much again. And I look forward to fielding the questions to come.
I'll make a list. I will.
Wonderful.
Take care. See you later. Cheers.
Take care.